It's Mock Draft Monday, people. Thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We are doing another mock draft for today's episode, but with a little bit of a twist. Stay tuned.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode. And thank you so much for all the subscriptions and follows on all podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. As you can see and hear as of right now, it is just myself, Steele Roden, hosting today's episode alone. Unfortunately, my co-host Flip Livingstone couldn't make it for today's episode. He will be back for tomorrow, but today it's a solo mock draft. We're doing things a little bit differently today. We've done 2 mock drafts previously, went pretty well. Flip and I go back and forth on who people, where you should draft these certain players. Maybe people are getting picked and selected way too high. Maybe they're getting, they're falling off way too low. They're falling down a couple of rounds. We've talked about that a little bit, but for today's episode, we're doing the sole purpose for people who, might be able to make their mock, their draft, their fantasy league draft. Sometimes things happen. You might have to auto pick people. Again, we've talked about it. Some people out there take the best available player at the top of the board. So that's what we're going to be doing today for today's mock draft. No matter what, I am going to select the best available player on the board and see at the end how my fantasy team looks out with every selection that I've made so far. So we're 30 seconds away from the first round and the first overall pick in today's mock draft. I will be selecting seventh overall in a 12-team mock draft right now. It's the same sort of format: 2 centermen, 2 left wingers, 2 right wingers, 4 defensemen, 2 goalies, and 4 bench players. The point systems are the same: goals, assists, power points, plus minus, shots on goal, hits, and the same categories as well. We are underway, and again, today's mock draft is the sole purpose of what might happen if you take the best available or if you're auto picking. And I recommend for everyone out there that you actually show up to your fantasy league draft on the set date and set time. Make sure you're there. And again, make sure you're prepared before heading into the mock draft. But yeah, we're going to be taking the best available player pool on the draft board and see what our team, comes out to be at the end of this episode. So that's what we're doing. Brady Tkachuk. That is the first time I've seen Brady Tkachuk taken in the top 5. And I actually respect that. I still think McKinnon should be ahead of Brady Tkachuk, but Brady Tkachuk is one of those versatile players where you're going to get a lot out of him. The best available player right now that I can select is Kirill Kaprizov, and I am A-okay with that selection. Everyone out there knows this about me now. I love the Minnesota Wild. I have a very strong feeling that they're going to have a very competitive year and hopefully a deep playoff run. I like me some Kirill Kaprizov. If I can get him with, in the first 2 rounds, he's going to be taking the first round. But if I can get him in the first round in my fantasy draft, I'm a happy kid. I'm all smiles there. Kirill Kaprizov, best available player. He is my first player taken on the left wing side. Igor Shesterkin taken 8th. Mikko Rantanen taken 9th. Andrei Vasilevsky taken 10th. And Matthew Tkachuk taken 11th. This is the first first draft I've actually ever seen where both Tkachuks were taken in, the first 2 rounds. He was taken, first 2 rounds. There's 12 teams here. They were both taken in the first round. That is actually very shocking to me. But Brady Tkachuk is one of those versatile players. He gets a ton of shots, gets a ton of hits. I think he had 60 or 68 points last year. So pretty good pick. He's a very versatile player. He can put up to 300 hits, 300 shots, maybe even 75 points this upcoming season with everything that Pierre Dorion and the Ottawa Senators organization has done this offseason to make them a better team. Let's actually go take a look. Yeah, he's projected 31 goals, 39 assists for the upcoming season. Yeah, he had 67 points last year, 17 power points. But that's the thing. He had 288 shots and 270 hits. He has the possibility of getting up to 300 in both shots on goal and hits. So that is a fantastic player to draft. Now, the best available player I'm up right now, available player is Victor Hedman. I'm getting my first defenseman on the board in the second round. I absolutely like this pick because, I've talked about this very, very often. For my strategy in every single draft that I'm in is I like to take a forward, a defenseman, and a goalie in the first 3 rounds, and specifically in that order. I think it's prime, and it's very crucial for fantasy teams to have successful years by taking one of those superstar forwards right off the bat. Obviously, you've got Cale Makar, Roman Josi, but one of those top forwards needs to be. That's why Flip and I have been suggesting to stay away from the goalies in the first round, even second round. That's why I wait for the goalies in the third round, because you're able to wait for still some of those top 5 goaltenders and top 10 in that third round. So that's what I like to do. That's the strategy that I have. Alex DeBrincat, 21st overall. David Pastrnak, 22nd. Mitch Marner went 19th. That's a pretty good steal as well. He's going to have a fantastic season playing alongside Austin Matthews, of course. But yeah, this is what we're going to be doing for today's episode. We're taking the best available player that is left on the board when it comes to my selection and my pick in that certain round. So that's what we're doing for today's episode. Again, it's the same sort of format: 4 bench, 2 goalies, 4 defensemen, 2 right wingers, 2 left wingers, and 2 centermen. So far, everything's looking so good, though. Kirill Kaprizov and Victor Hedman on the team so far. That's a pretty good start, in my opinion. Take the best available. Obviously, it's the first 2 rounds, and once you get down to the 5th, the 6th, and everything after that, it gets a little bit tougher, because that's where I like to start mixing things up, taking players that are ranked lower and should be taken higher. But that is the angle we're taking for today's episode. What you should do if you take the best available player, or if you're one of those people that forgot about their fantasy draft, something might come up and you're just not able to make it, and unfortunately have to auto draft. So that's what this is all about: auto drafting, or just taking the best available player. And so far, it's actually working out pretty good. I would like to take Artemi Panarin in this position, maybe Mika Zibanejad, but the best available player so far with the X rank is Sidney Crosby, and that is my first centerman taken as well. So Sidney Crosby, my first centerman; Kirill Kaprizov, my first left winger; and Victor Hedman, my first defenseman. So far, the team's looking pretty good. I like the team right now. I usually never do this. I never take the best available player. I think it's a really strange strategy going into any fantasy draft. I don't recommend it to people, but this is the angle we're taking. So far, it's actually working out. So this is shocking me. This is a little bit of surprise to my knowledge as well. But so far, so good. I like the 3 players on my team. I would have taken Artemi Panarin or Mika Zibanejad over Crosby, but still, Crosby has a ton of gas left in the tank. And I still think the Pittsburgh Penguins have a legit shot at making a deep playoff run. No matter what, when they have Crosby, they are a serious, serious contender every single year. What round are we in? The 4th round right now, 37th overall. Jason Robertson, Aaron Ekblad, Moritz Seider just went alongside Artemi Panarin right before that. John Carlson just went 38th overall. Thatcher Demko. Now we're getting into the goaltenders a little bit more. Let's look on the board here, though. Jakob Markstrom, Elias Sorokin is the next available goalie, 34th overall, or 34th ranked, excuse me. But I'm going to have to make a goalie selection with my next overall pick, and it looks like Elias Sorokin is the best available option, so I might have to go with that. 10 seconds here, 2 picks away from myself. But yeah, I really like doing these mock drafts for everyone. Leave some comments on the video. Send us a message on Twitter as well. We've gotten a bunch of DMs on Twitter. You know what? I'll get back to that, but here is my next selection here. Chris Kreider is the next best available player. Again, this is someone that Flip and I have talked about a little bit to stay away from, because he had 52 goals last year, 25 assists, and look at his projections: 36 goals, 26 assists. That's pretty much a 20-point difference, I got to say. Yeah, about a 15 to 20-point difference from last year, especially in the goal department. I think Chris Kreider you can get away with him, letting him fall all the way to the 5th, maybe 6th round. But yeah, that's someone that I would tend to stay away from just because he's not going to be able to put up 52 goals again. I just don't think that's realistic. But yeah, back to the point. Leave some comments on the YouTube channel. DM us on Twitter. We've been getting a ton of DMs on Twitter recently asking about some fantasy advice, what we think about their team. Same goes for YouTube. We've been getting some comments dropped on our YouTube channel as well on some of the last mock drafts or just some of the last videos we've posted, letting us know what they think about their team, maybe some trade options they have in mind, what our opinions might be on them. So don't be afraid to leave the comments. Don't be afraid to DM us on Twitter as well. We will get back to you as soon as possible. Flip and I both work 2 jobs. He's getting ready for a wedding, in late October. I'm getting ready to move across country. I'm moving to Vancouver as well. So we're busy bees right now, but we are still able to DM and get back to you no matter what. So we will get back to you as soon as possible. My pick in the 5th round is coming up right now. Mika Zibanejad is still available. I'm really hoping that this Terry guy does not take Mika Zibanejad, because I've so far taken him in every single league I've been in, and as well as every single mock draft, I'm pretty sure. So if I can put Mika Zibanejad alongside Chris Kreider, that makes me feel a lot. You know what? I take it all back. This Terry guy just took Mika Zibanejad right under my nose. Right under my nose. Best available player, though, Mark Stone. That's not that bad. Look, all things considered, there's Elias Lindholm out there, Vladimir Tarasenko, Nazem Kadri, John Tavares. Those are guys, Josh Norris as well, who's still 20 spots down from the best available. Those are some of the guys I would have rather taken over Mark Stone at this position. But again, the best available player. So far, the team's looking pretty good. I don't have a goalie yet, so I'm going to have to select a goalie with my next pick. So I know he's not the best available player, but I will take the best available goalie. So looking at this list right now, Marc-Andre Fleury is the best option available. Then it goes Sergei Bobrovsky, Spencer Knight, Tristan Jarry. I can't believe Jeremy Swayman's above guys like Darcy Kemper, Jonathan Quick, Billy Husso even, Jordan Binnington. I'm not sure about that. I'm not the one that makes the rankings here for Yahoo. But again, I'm taking the best available goalie once it gets to my turn. Pacioretty just got taken off the board, which I don't know why anyone, as of right now, would take Max Pacioretty in the 5th round. Sorry, 6th round. Max Pacioretty is out for the next, 3-4 months? He's on the injured reserve. Let's take a look if we can get some of his information on Max Pacioretty. But yeah, he's going to be injured for the first couple of months. So that's way too early to take a guy like Max Pacioretty. We talked about this. Make sure you're doing your research. Make sure you know if people are injured, how and when they might, the potential timeline for when they can return to the lineup for their organization might be as well. Again, don't take injured players out for longer than 2 months, especially in the 5th or 6th round. That's way too early. I don't care how good they are. That will be detrimental to your team, to your fantasy team success, in my opinion. So make sure you're not doing that. Everybody tuning in, everybody who's tuning in who won't be there for their fantasy draft or has the strategy of taking the best available player, that's exactly what we're doing for today. That's the angle we're on. Thank you so much for tuning in for the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, making it your first listen every single day. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't be afraid to hit the follow button as well. Thank you so much for subscribing and tuning in. Flip and I appreciate it so much. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode. Again, taking the best available player, but I need a goalie right now, so I have to go with the best available option. Marc-Andre Fleury, another Minnesota boy, Minnesota Wild teammate of Kirill Kaprizov. I'm so excited for the Minnesota Wild's upcoming season. I'm just excited for the NHL season to come around. The betting angles Flip and I are going to be on, locks of the night, anytime goals, anytime points. We're going to look at a bunch of different options for this year's lock of the nights and big time bets. So we can't wait to get back in action, placing our bets down, showing everyone, legitimately placing our bets and showing everyone what we do. Plus, Flip and I are going to be doing our side bets as well. So stay tuned for all of those. But Flip and I could not be more excited for this upcoming season. So much to look forward to, especially with the fantasy, the gambling side, being able to record these podcasts, being able to record these episodes, and honestly, just being able to see the love and support and the reciprocation we're getting from all of our listeners and viewers out there. We could not be more excited and happier with how this Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast has gone so far ever since we started back in late January of 2021 or 2022. Sorry. We've been at this for 8 months now, 9 months, I believe. We've really seen over the last couple of months it grown and really grow to where we've wanted it to go. And we're super excited to continue to get this podcast, trending in the right direction. We've seen that over the last couple of months. So again, thank you for tuning in and subscribing and following. We appreciate all the love and support out there. Tanner Jeannot, wow. Tanner Jeannot taken 75th overall in the 7th round. We've talked about Tanner Jeannot before. Flip and I. Why is his stats not coming up? There we go. Projected 22 goals, 15 assists. Wow. So they're projecting him to have less points than he had last year. I think that is really undervaluing the skill set of Tanner Jeannot as well as the Nashville Predators as a whole. I think he has the opportunity to make the top lineup or be in the top 6 group alongside guys like Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, Mikael Granlund, Nino Niederreiter. I really think he does. Let's get back to the players, though. Best available player as of right now, Evgeny Malkin. Again, this is not a guy who I would be taking right now. I think the injuries that we've seen for him over the last couple of seasons really puts a sour taste in my mouth selecting him in the 7th round. And the fact that I already have a Pittsburgh Penguins centerman, I know they're going to be playing together on the power play, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. But again, I've already got a centerman for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I usually don't like taking centermen on the same team or, wingers on the same team. I usually like trying to get them a centerman or left winger, centerman, defenseman, whatever it might be. But again, it's not overly terrible. But again, there's guys like Kadri, Tavares, Bergeron, Matt Duchene, Batherson, Pierre-Luc Dubois, who I probably would have taken over a guy like Evgeny Malkin because I don't really have to worry about all those injury concerns like you have to do with Malkin. But again, we're taking the best available player, the best available options out there. I only have one defenseman right now. See, that's the problem. If you're taking the best available player, and I've only got one defenseman so far, you're going to be slacking in that department again. And that's what I said. Once you get down to the 6th, the 7th, and the later rounds, that's when it really gets hard taking the best available player because it doesn't fit the mold and the mold you want for your fantasy team to live up to for the upcoming season. Drake Batherson, Kevin Fiala, Dougie Hamilton just taken in the 8th round as well. 2 picks away from my next pick. Again, Kadri, Tavares, Buchnevich are the next best available players, but I've already got 2 centermen. I can't do it. I need a right winger, but I did say I would take the best available. So I'm going to have to go with Nazem Kadri. I do like the selection, but I'm lacking right now on defensemen and on another right winger. Plus, I only have one goalie, so that's something I'm going to have to look towards as well. So maybe that's what I should do. Go to the defenseman, look at the next best available defenseman I can take, and that's what we'll have to go with. Shea Theodore, Miro Heiskanen, Torrey Krug. Scratch that. Miro Heiskanen was just taken, but Evan Bouchard, Owen Power, Jacob Trouba, Bowen Byram, those are the next guys on the list. Wow. As I speak about taking defensemen, 5 defensemen taken in a row. Zach Werenski, Miro Heiskanen, Torrey Krug, Thomas Chabot, and Jacob Trouba, all taken 5 picks within each other. Then Trevor Zegras, 100th overall in this draft. I'm 2 picks away from my next pick. I need a defenseman, and we're going with the best available picks here. So 2 picks away right now. So far, the team's not looking too bad, though. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Kirill Kaprizov, Chris Kreider, Mark Stone, Victor Hedman, Marc-Andre Fleury, and Nazem Kadri. Zach Hyman was just taken 101st overall. My team's looking pretty solid so far. At this point, going off of my strategy, I would have had 2 goalies selected already. I would have had 2 or 3 defensemen already. I wouldn't have a bench player as of right now, but that's the angle we're doing for today's episode. Trying to do everything possible to give you the insight, the information about where you might be drafting, any angle possible. Shea Theodore, that will be my selection. I really like this player as well. Projected 13 goals, 39 assists. So yeah, he's projected to have the exact same amount of points he had last year, but he's going to have more shots and 1 less hit. So he's projected to pretty much put up the exact same fantasy points and statistical numbers that we saw Shea Theodore put up last year as well. Jeremy Swayman, Patrice Bergeron, Matt Duchene, Alexander Georgiev, Jordan Bennington taken right after my selection of Shea Theodore. I'm going to have to make a goalie selection now. Jonathan Quick, the best available goalie as of right now. That's who my next selection is going to be. It has to be. I need a goalie. I need 2 starting goaltenders to feel comfortable moving forward at this point in the draft. I'm 3 picks away, and that's what I'm going to have to make my selection with. Jonathan Quick. And Flip and I have talked about this with Jonathan Quick and Cal Peterson. These 2 guys really, really do have a lot left in the tank, especially Jonathan Quick for being at his age, and Cal Peterson trying to become the starting goaltender for the LA Kings. These guys still battle it out between each other, but that's the thing too, is as they battle it out, they still want the team to do the best they possibly can. And those are 2 guys that I would consider taking as the second goalie option. Not your first, but your second goalie option. Jonathan Quick, my second goalie in the selected draft. I still need a right winger and 2 defensemen. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to go over to the right wings over here and see who we have available. Brian Rust, Matt Zuccarello, Matt Boldy, Jesper Bratt, Jonathan Marchessault, all guys I would consider, but there's also Troy Terry down the list, Blake Wheeler, Seth Jarvis, who Flip really, really loves, Adrian Kempe, TJ Oshie. There's a bunch of guys out here, but I got to go with the best available right winger once they get down to my pick, which is 7 picks away from now. But we just Juraj Slafkovsky, 117th. Okay. Who is that? Who is that? Who is drafting Slafkovsky 117th in the 11th round or 10th round? That's way too early. I don't even know if he's going to be on the team to start the year. Oh, gee. What did I just witness? Wow. All right, we're 4 picks away. 4 picks away from my next draft selection, 127th overall. Started with the 7th overall pick, I believe. Yeah, I started with the 7th overall. Chose Kirill Kaprizov with my first round pick. Wow, it just went right down to me. Owen Power taking 126. I got to go with a right winger. Brian Rust is the next best available player. I need a right winger. That is my next selection. Again, that's another problem right there. I now have 3 Pittsburgh Penguin players on my team, and I know I've done that in the past where I've had, 1 centerman, 1 right winger, 1 defenseman, or 1 right winger, 1 left winger, and a goalie on the same team. But I don't like having 2 centermen from the same team. In this case, it's a little bit different because Malkin and Crosby do get that power play time together. But again, both guys have had serious injuries in the past. They've dealt with serious injuries over the last couple of seasons, especially Evgeny Malkin. Sure. So that's what worries me with that selection. But so far, I really do like the outlook of my team. Even though I've never used this strategy. I don't recommend implementing this strategy into your fantasy draft. But so far, it's worked out pretty good. Again, so far on my team, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, both my centermen, Kirill Kaprizov, Chris Kreider, both my left wingers, Mark Stone, Brian Rust, my right wingers, Victor Hedman, Shea Theodore, my defensemen, Mike Fleury, Jonathan Quick, my goaltender, Kadri is the first player on my bench, but I have to make my defensive picks right now because I still need those defenseman slots to be filled before we wrap things up here. I'm 6 picks away from my next selection. Yeah, I really like doing these mock drafts. Again, let us know in the comments or DM us on Twitter what you think of the videos, what Flip and I should do before the season starts, or even during the season, what you guys want to see. DM us, leave some comments on Twitter, leave a like and a subscribe on the YouTube page. Thank you so much. We're so close to 400 subscribers as well. The amount of subscribers and support we've gotten over the last couple of months has been absolutely outstanding. So thank you again. Flip and I just want to just show some love to you guys, guys and girls out there as well for subscribing, showing us the support. We've really loved creating this content, creating these different angles and everything for fantasy as well as gambling. And just, we just love doing it. We love talking hockey. We love jumping on and recording a podcast every single day for you out there. So you can all tune in. And yeah, it's been a great ride so far. We love where we're heading. It's definitely going to be a busy couple of months for Flip and I. Again, like I said, he's getting married in the next month. I'm moving across country to Vancouver. So it's going to be busy for us for the next couple of months, but we're still looking forward to getting all the content out there for you. It's my pick now. I need to take the best available defenseman here, and I've taken this guy, but not until my last pick in the draft, in the last draft. That's Jake Sanderson of the Ottawa Senators. I don't recommend taking Jake Sanderson in the 12th round or even in the 13th, 14th, 15th round. I think that's a little bit too early for a rookie defenseman of the Ottawa Senators who's going to be playing or starting on the third pair defenseman for the Senators as well. But he was the best available defenseman on the rankings list, so I had to take him. See, that's what happens when you sometimes take the best available player. It's that he's not actually the best available player. It's just on the rankings list he is. So we're getting down to my last pick here. I need to take a defenseman. And here we go. Jeff Petrie, another Pittsburgh Penguin player. I now have 4. Do I have 4 players on the Pittsburgh Penguins? 1, 2, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Brian Rust, and Jeff Petrie. I have 4 players on the Pittsburgh Penguins now. That is not something I recommend for you to do out there, is have 4 players from the same team. I do have 3 selections left, 3 bench spots to pick. I'll make my next selection, but then we'll wrap things up. I'll get back to the all players category here. Still a bunch of talented players out here. Tomas Hertl, Matthew Barzal, Nick Suzuki, Nico Hischier, Seth Jarvis, like I mentioned, getting down that list. Ryan O'Reilly and Ryan Hartman. But I got to take the best available player. Oh, Barzal was just taken. Ryan Hartman. See, I might have to take another Minnesota player, which, again, that just doesn't really, it's not really what I'm looking for, but I'll make the selection. I'll wrap things up. I'll let everyone know what the team is at the end of this selection. Let me know what you think of this mock draft and this angle I'm going through right now. Best available player on X-Rank is Anton Lundell of the Florida Panthers, projected 20 goals, 32 assists. So definitely a better season than what we saw last year. But again, that's just projections. We don't know if he's actually going to put up those numbers, but I'm going to take him anyway. That is it for today's episode. Finally, this is my final team in this mock draft. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Kirill Kaprizov, Chris Kreider, Mark Stone, Brian Rust, Victor Hedman, Shea Theodore, Jake Sanderson, Jeff Petrie, Marc-Andre Fleury, Jonathan Quick, Nazem Kadri, and Anton Lundell. I still have 2 bench players, but I'm going to wrap things up right here because we're getting a little bit late in this episode. But again, when you take the best available player, it's not always the best options for your fantasy team. I now have 4 Pittsburgh Penguin players, and I believe I have a couple of my defensemen are not the best. Jake Sanderson and Jeff Petrie. Anton Lundell was not the best option out there. Once you get down to those later draft rounds, it's not the best strategy to go with the best available player on the rankings list That's just my opinion. My strategy has always been a forward, a defenseman, and a goalie in the first 3 rounds. I do try to pair up a forward and a defenseman on the same team, some top tier defensemen and forwards, but that's just me. That's my finalized team for this mock draft. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it out there. It is now back to my selection. So you know what? I'll make my next selection, and that is Ryan O'Reilly. I now have one more pick, but I'm going to wrap things up right now. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, make sure you subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.